Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome to today's video. Today we are going over the nodes entering Pisces and Virgo. This is one of the many significant transits that we're going to see in 2025. And so, of course, we need to do a video on this. And basically, the nodes matter a lot. And when they change signs, although it might not be one of those things you're going to feel that day happening, right? Because it's more of a long term influence. It's like over that year and a half, because the nodes are going to stay in a sign for a year and a half, 18 months, roughly. And so, because of that, like I said, we're not going to see the nodes be this one time moment, right? It's not a moment in time, but it's a snapshot, or I should rather say it's a subtle energy that is going to influence for that period of time. Now, if you have planets that the nodes come in contact with in your natal chart, that's going to be stronger for you. So, who is going to be most affected by this transit that's happening January 2025? The nodes enter, right now, the nodes are in Aries and Libra, and they're going to enter Virgo and Pisces January 11th of 2025. And remember, because of the way the nodes move, why are we starting at the end? Because they move from the end of the sign to the beginning of the sign. They go in the opposite order as the planets, because the nodes are not planets, they are points in space. So they go the opposite way. Okay, so that being said, today we're going to go through what this transit means for you for each sign of the zodiac, starting with Aries and going to Pisces. Now, whenever I'm doing a video like this, I'm doing it live, which means timestamps won't be there until later, right? Because I can't do them while I'm here live. Even if I did, the video has to be already up first. So if you're watching this right after I've gone live or while I'm live, there won't be timestamps, but you can tell what sign we're on because what sign is here. What sign is on the ascendant? That's whatever sign I'm on. Actually, you know what I just realized I should do is make a little caption. Yeah. Let me see if I can just make captions. I'm going to do that while we're talking. So I'm going to need you guys to help me by chit-chatting with me while I'm doing this administrative thing that I just thought of as genius. Because I know what happens is you guys are going to want this. So I'm doing this now and then we'll get into it. So how are you guys doing with the energies? There was a new moon. Ugh. Hold on. Okay, hopefully this stays. There was a new moon, and that was early in December. I can't believe it's the 8th already. It has flown by. Things have already been changing for me, but I kind of expected that happening because I am going into it's going to be my birthday. And for those of you who don't know, when it's your birthday in astrology, that's the beginning of the new year for you, and every year has a different flavor. Based on like your annual perfections and based on like a bunch of other stuff, but mostly that. And so I kind of knew that there would be an energy shift going on. Also, I kind of needed one because this last year the energy was just weird. Just kind of stagnant. So I'm excited. Let's see, I'm just adding the signs. For anyone jumping on, we're about to go through the notes for everyone. And maybe I'll go back and edit this out after. Okay. All right. So what we're doing today is we are going through what the nodal shift in January 2025 means for each sign of the zodiac. And so we're going to start with Aries. We're going to go through Pisces And we are also, okay, Aries through Pisces. You can also watch your sun, moon, and rising. People ask me that every video. Can you watch your sun, moon, and rising? Yes, you can always watch your sun, moon, and rising. Always, always, always. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and jump in and start with Aries. Of what does this year mean for you when it comes to this nodal shift happening in January? So for Aries, you guys have had the nodes in your first house and your seventh house. The south node in the, wait, no, that's wrong. Yes, that's right. No, south node, sorry. South node in the seventh, north node in the first. Okay, so that means you have been spending the last roughly 18 months focusing on your life direction, releasing things related to other people. That doesn't mean just not having a relationship, being totally alone. It means letting go of the aspects of relationships that are no longer serving you. For some Aries, maybe sometime in the last 18 months, you have had a breakup or you have had a separation or you have lost a friend or two. But it's more about that shift into, embodying your own self, focusing on your life direction, focusing on what you're trying to do, what you're trying to accomplish. Okay. So now, let me make this smaller here. Aries is going to have this shift where that south node moving into the sixth is going to mean releasing of sixth house things. And the north node going into the 12th is going to be a time to embrace 12th house things. So keep in mind that for each person, this is going to be different depending on a lot of things, but really kind of depending upon what you need to let go of and what you need to grab onto, what phase of life you're in, right? A retired person versus someone with kids versus, someone who's like 20 and has no kids. It's going to be a different thing, right? So remember that. Remember that it's different for everyone. And so what kind of things might Aries see during this time? Well, new spiritual practices, new connections to spirit guides, decisions in the next 18 months to embrace isolation, to embrace meditation, solitude, to embrace maybe something to explore your subconscious mind, behaviors, any self-sabotaging tendencies, which we all have. This does not mean Aries is going to start self-sabotaging now. It's more like when we're focused on the 12th house, when we have 12th house transits, the subconscious issues that we've been avoiding maybe tend to surface. The subconscious things that we need to address that we have not addressed, it's time to address. And we might want to address them because we realize and see the value, or we might need to address them because we are forced to. Okay, worst case scenario, some Aries sun, moon, and rising might need to do something like getting sober. They might need to do something like lose weight or do other things that indicate that release of the south node in the sixth house. It's letting go of. It's letting go of things that you do every day that are not serving you. It's letting go of chores, right? So some Aries might be finding ways. Okay, an example would be for some Aries, this transit might, if you have a bunch of employees that aren't doing shit, maybe some Aries are getting rid of the dead weight. Maybe there is something you're spending your time doing and you become aware of how much time is being wasted, or something happens where you just have to be more intentional with your time, therefore you do. Maybe you realize that you got to quit smoking, right? It could be something simple like just a regular everyday habit change. But that south node in the sixth kind of does feel like purging of problems. And so I think this could be good in the sense that if you've been doing the dishes in a way that takes way more time than it needs to take, and just fill this in with what makes sense in your life of things that are like chores that just take your time and they don't like give you anything back. The south node in the sixth might be a time where you're like, okay, we got to stop doing that stuff. We got to work on this. We got to let it go. It's possible to release like a job. I know they say work goes in the sixth house, but it's not the same as like you're losing your job. This is wouldn't be, I wouldn't predict that in a general reading anyway, but that transit alone probably isn't going to do that. If anything, maybe you get an assistant at your job and there's less work to do. Maybe some of your workload gets taken away. Maybe you choose to consciously release some of the things you've been working on. Maybe you've been working Aries towards something and you've been working on like things that it's almost like, when you have a business and you have to do all the work and then at some point you can scale. Maybe some Aries out there are scaling in the next year and a half. And it's like the things they used to always have to do themselves, now someone else can do, and it can free them up a little bit. So for this nodal transit starting in January, I'm seeing a shift from the focus between relationships, you versus me, and who's doing what, and how much am I doing what I want to do myself, to kind of shifting that up to focus on how am I spending my time, and how much of my time is life-giving? How much of my time is invested in being a better human? How much of my time is invested in spirit guides and spirituality and things that are private, that are quiet and contemplative versus busy work? This would be a good time. I could see Aries in the next year and a half, starting in January, about doing things like quitting eating fast food, like learning how to do meal prep. So you're not doing the same, you're not cooking the same eggs every day. You know what I mean? You're like cooking them and freezing them and then you heat them up. Or whatever that looks like for you, whatever thing is taking up so much of your time, reducing problems and reducing problems. Some of it might be like physical health stuff where you've resolved something and you don't have to deal with it anymore, or you get to a certain point where it becomes second nature and it's like it's not as time consuming, but it really does feel like releasing things that took up a lot of time and focusing more on spiritual life, isolation, and things like that. Okay, so that is what I have for Aries, and I'm just realizing that I forgot to announce what I wanted to announce today. So I'm going to announce it now, and then I'm going to go on to the rest of the signs. So the announcement here is that I have a video available right now called Blocks to Blessings. This is a 10-minute video you can get in the description. There's a link. I don't always do videos, and so when I do a video like this, you got to get it while it's available because it will go away. I will take it off and then I will maybe reintroduce it later. And someday down the road, I won't be doing videos anymore. So take it while you can, get it while you can. And this one is really popular. People really love it. What I do is I look at your chart and make you a video. There's a link to watch it. It doesn't come with a download. You can watch the video. And it tells you my opinion of the biggest block in your chart and how you can work with those energies. So I highly recommend getting in on that. And if you would like to, you can click the link in the description for more on that. I'm going to check the comments and then we're going to go on to Tauruses. All right. It looks like Karmic Karen is here. ASD. Hey, your vertex doesn't matter for this. It's just where the nodes are based on your sun, moon, and rising. So that's why we're doing the video based on that. Okay. And then, yeah, Karmic Karen, Virgo, Sun, Mercury, Venus, rising, and South Node. Perfect. Okay, so we're going to go on now to our next sign, which is Taurus. So let me get us on to that. There we go. So for Taurus, I only have the nodes, so you can just see where they are in the houses. And we are using whole sign for this. Always general reports are going to have whole sign. For Taurus, we have the South Node moving from the 6th house into the 5th house. And we have the North Node moving into the 11th house. So for the last 18 months, your North and South Node have been in the 12th and 6th houses. So if you want to reflect on how you've let go of certain habits, how you've, released a certain amount of work to be done, or change the nature of your work, or change the nature of your problems, or how you have focused in on growing or doing more things that are spiritual and psychological in nature, and understanding your spiritual life more, connecting with spirit guides, connecting with the unseen. That could be something to think about. But when it comes to what to expect here, it really is, letting go and releasing things in the fifth house and saying yes to things in the 11th house. So if you are a Taurus who is some kind of an artist, or you publish things, or you have an audience, or you have a YouTube channel, or you have anything like that, this might be a 18-month period where you are letting go of, it's like the phrase "kill your darlings" comes to mind with this, with the south node in the fifth and the north node in the 11th. It's about learning when and how to give the people what they want, right? When I think of the 11th house in terms of like evolutionary astrology, I think of the archetype of the king, where it's about, you have to make the people happy if you're a king, or else they overthrow you. You know what I mean? You can't just do whatever you want and rule like, off with their heads. You would not be a king, you'd be a dictator. So or celebrity energy, right? Where celebrities have to consider the public perception in order to stay relevant and stay popular. Otherwise, people stop buying their stuff and they won't watch their movies or listen to their music. So, how does that affect you with the nodes going into these signs? If you are someone who any of those topics are relevant to your life, it's about letting go of the diva archetype and saying hello, saying yes to the king archetype, saying yes to giving the people what they want, saying yes to winning over the public, saying yes to figuring out what the world wants from you instead of what you want to create for it. Now, this does not mean you're going to lose things, it doesn't mean you're going to lose your creative energy, but it does feel like there might be a time or a few times in the next year and a half that Taurus, Sun, Moon, and Rising could be releasing independence on a project and embracing doing things in a group setting. You might be joining associations, you might be joining groups, you might be making new friends or hanging out with friends more. That 11th house is groups of people, it's community, it's your community. It's not, it's like, yeah, it's your community, it's your friends, it's the group of people you work with. If you work on a group project of 3 people or more, it's that. So it might just be your life is working more in groups, or you find that it's time, it's time to do things in a group setting, especially things that you used to do or create on your own. So if you used to paint by yourself, now it's time to go paint with other people. If you used to paint, if you have all these paintings in your house that you're not doing anything with, maybe it's time to sell them. Take that metaphor, apply it to what makes sense in your life with what you are creating, what you are accomplishing. Now, Tauruses, Sun, Moon, and Rising who have kids, maybe that South Node in the fifth it's not like your kid goes bye-bye. You know what I mean? It's not that crazy for most people, right? It might be time for your kids to go to college. It might be time for your kids to go to kindergarten. And it's a release for you of how it used to be till now, right? Like a change, a shift in that dynamic where your kids are less there in your life for some reason like that. But so that I could see happening for some Tauruses. Now, what else? What else? Yeah, letting go of things in that fifth house that are more just for everyone would be maybe you have less time to create or to sing or to make music or whatever you might do because you are focusing on the needs of a community. Maybe you get a job that is really demanding and you're doing more stuff to support the other people, and now it's time to share and to connect with people. Overall, the 11th house is a good house. So the opportunities that the North Node in the 11th house might bring for Taurus, Sun, Moon, and Rising might be just opportunities to connect with people. And it doesn't always mean it's bringing opportunities, but it could be that you are creating those and it's time for you. It's just that time. Also, with releasing in that fifth house with the South Node, there could be something about purging, right? Purging bad habits. If you have a gambling problem, letting go of that. If you have had a business and it hasn't been working and you might feel like taking a break from that or letting go of that thing. The South Node really sometimes is us doing less of that thing or making it more spiritual. That's another thing, is making it more spiritual, because the South Node in Vedic astrology is very much connected to things that are spiritual and not of the material world. So what does it mean? It means maybe if you're doing art, well, we're just going to keep that metaphor and apply it to what makes sense to you. It's like those mandalas that the monks do in the sand, and like, I mean, anyone can do, I guess, but and it's like you're not supposed to be attached to it. You're supposed to just wash it all away. I would hate that personally, but this might be a time for you to somehow, in some way, have this release of attachment to your own creations, release of attachment to your own way of doing it. Maybe you normally write songs by yourself and now you're co-writing a song. I mean, it could be anything. And of course, not everyone is a songwriter, so just apply it to what makes sense to you. But letting go of the need to be the one in charge of the creation is how that could also work too. But then again, it comes back to purging sources of pleasure that are no longer pleasurable. And that could be a wide range of things, just depending on you personally. Okay, so that is what I have for Taurus. And we're going to move on to our next sign, which is going to be our Geminis. Okay. Oh, hey, Cody. Okay, so for Geminis, we have got the North Node in the 10th, South Node in the 4th. So, okay, so the this one's kind of I would say there's houses where the North and South Node don't work as well, and there's houses where they work. This one works quite well. So overall, the general gist of it for Gemini is going to be, and remember, this starts in January 2025. I hope I didn't say 2024 earlier. I probably did. But North Node in the 10th is doing more materialistic things that further your reputation, further your career, get you your name out there, get you noticed, get you accomplished. South Node in the 4th is letting go of things that are emotional, that are holding you back. If you want to work with this transit, you're someone who always wants to work with every energy. For Gemini, Sun, Moon, and Rising, the way to work with South Node in the 4th is like kind of like doing therapy and stuff. I'm not saying you need it. I am not prescribing or diagnosing any problems here. But the 4th house is our emotional foundation, and the South Node represents spirituality and it represents purging. So South Node in the 4th can be letting go of certain aspects of the emotional foundation that are no longer serving you. Letting go of a home, letting go of a moving away from family of origin, taking a job that requires you to move sometime in the next 18 months. It's not always going to be that for everyone. It could be a time too where you have less time in your home and more time out and about at work, out and about in the community, out and about dealing with your public life. More focus on your public life, the things you would be known for, the things you would be recognized for, the things that you've accomplished or want to accomplish, and less focus on emotional life or releasing things in the family unit, releasing things in your home that are no longer serving you. Okay, so that can be if you're in real estate, maybe you're selling some homes and gaining your reputation. If you're not in real estate, maybe you're moving. Maybe you are still selling a house. Maybe you are moving, right? Releasing a physical home. Or some of you might be doing some therapy and being like, okay, these things in my emotional foundation are no longer working. Let's figure it out. Or bringing more spiritual practices to your day-to-day life. You could be meditating at home more. You could be doing a Reiki in your bed, in your bedroom. You could be bringing some sage in and clearing it out more often and just really being conscious of releasing certain energies in the home as well. That could show up too. And it's an 18-month transit. So don't feel like you have to go do this on January 11th when the nodes enter the sign or anything. This is just saying what you're most likely going to want to engage in more wherever the north node is and do less of wherever the south node is. It's either engage in more or do less, or be more materialistic, be more earthly, worldly in that 10th house, which is a great place to be worldly, and be more spiritual and heavenly, right? Be more heavenly in the 4th house, which is home. So you're going to want to be more materialistic and accomplished at work and more heavenly and spiritual at home during this time. And that can show up in a multitude of ways. But that is really the gist of it for Geminis. Okay. So we're going on now to the next set of signs, which is Cancer, Sun, Moon, and Rising. So let me get the chart moving here. Okay, so for Cancer, the nodes have been in your 10th and 4th house. Now, if you want to know Cancer, how, like if you're someone who likes to go over the past and reflect on it, then you can go back and watch everything I just said for Gemini, because that's what you're still in as at the moment of this video and what you will be going from. Okay, so we're leaving that purging of the emotional life and embracing accomplishment. And now we're moving into the north node in the 9th and the south node in the 3rd. So this one, I'm going to be honest, isn't the most copacetic, okay? It's not the most harmonious set of nodes, and I know because I have this one in my natal chart. So what does it do? The south node is all spiritual and stuff. It wants to release and it wants to be like a monk. Okay, so you want to be more spiritual and aesthetic in your 3rd house, but the 3rd house is your day-to-day life. So it doesn't quite work as well because you need to be more materialistic there. The north node wants to be all materialistic. And what is it in your spiritual life? That's not where you get stuff. So the person, and I know this from experience, this is like the person who wants to manifest $1 million and then doesn't, and they manifest all these, spiritual qualities, and they're like, that's not useful. Now let's talk more though about how this will apply to Cancer personally though, because what is the north node in the 9th likely going to have you wanting to do? Maybe take up astrology, maybe study some spiritual studies, maybe do some traveling. The north node in the 9th wants to go. Okay, the north node in the 9th wants to leave their environment, release their environment. Doesn't mean you don't like it. Maybe you'll get tired of it. Maybe you will want to stop talking to a sibling during this time, or take a break from a sibling, or have a sibling do something else that would make them more removed from your life. Maybe they travel or you travel away from them, and that's a significant difference. Or maybe their beliefs change and you no longer believe the same things, and now there's a difference in that. But honestly, for Cancer, maybe some of you are traveling, and if you're not going somewhere far away, you're probably going to have a voracious appetite for spiritual studies. Now, if you're into the law, or if you're into psychology, or if you are, maybe some of you might be going to college right now. This is not advice, but some people during this 18 months, starting January 2025, might be going to higher education. You might be getting a degree. You might be going back to school or going to school. You might be specializing in some kind of education or learning, or some more in-depth education in whatever your field you're already in. But it could just be you want to read all the books. You want to read all the spiritual books. You want to focus on your intuition. You want to become more intuitive. You want to connect more with the divine. You want to live a more spiritual life and release things of this world and let them go. Now, this isn't letting go of possessions. This is South Node of the 3rd is letting go of. It's like the 3rd house, part of the 3rd house no one ever talks about, is your commute. And you're like, they say it's your local environment. It's not just your neighbors and stuff. It's like when you get in your car or you get on your bike or you walk, whatever you do, where are you going every day? Are you going to your office, your workplace, a certain grocery store, a bunch of stores, the crystal shop? Are you going to Whole Foods like I do all the time? Are you going to, where do you go every day? And maybe every weekend or every month or whatever. Those places, that's what the South Node is affecting. So what does it mean? It means maybe the places that you're going become more spiritual. Maybe you start shopping at Sprouts or Whole Foods, or maybe you start buying essential oils on the way home every day, or maybe you somehow are mixing spirituality with your day-to-day life. Maybe you're going to the farmer's market and doing things that feel more monk-like, feel more like you're bringing spirituality into them, if that makes sense. But what the South Node could do that's problematic in the third, it can make you not care enough about the embodied world in front of you. Care a lot more about, pulling some tarot cards or getting that spiritual information. Now that's not necessarily a bad thing, but if it's out of balance, that could be it. So for Cancers, there's a few ways this could show up. Letting go of a third house thing, like moving, or a neighbor moves away, or a sibling relationship becomes more distant for some reason. Or it can also be letting go of, like if you were doing a third house thing a lot, maybe during this time you will not do that thing as much. What could that be? That could be driving all the time, running around, doing errands all the time, being really, really busy, doing busy work, doing a lot of emails and phone calls and stuff, writing. The third house is the act of writing. So it could be during this time, if you're a writer, you write less. Maybe you're focusing on publishing instead of writing. And that's the main focus. And there's less of the actual act of writing. If you're not a writer, that does not apply to you. Maybe if you are an elementary school teacher, you stop teaching elementary school this time and start teaching groups. If you're not a teacher, that doesn't apply to you. But those are the ways that I think the South Node, North Node are going to show up for Cancers during this transit. So we're going to move on to our next sign, which is our Leos. Okay, so going on now to our Leo, Sun, Moon, and Rising. Whoops, I got to change this part. And okay, so okay. So for Leos, that North Node is now moving into the 8th house, which means you've just done this cycle, basically this year and a half of you guys focusing more on your spiritual life and letting go of something in your immediate environment, or bringing more spirituality to your neighborhood in some way. Now we're going into North Node in the 8th house and South Node in the 2nd house. So let's start with the South Node, because this one is really not I just did this one, you're gonna live, okay? But like, it's not great for the nodes to be in the South Node to be in the 2nd house. This is not really what we want to see. Why? Because the 2nd house rules money and possessions. It's what you have and what you own. It's material, and it's what you've got. And the South Node is ascetic. It is monk-like. It wants to be spiritual. It wants to give away all its possessions and live a monastic life and live in freaking Tibet and meditate all day. You know what I mean? Like, the South Node doesn't want stuff, but the 2nd house is stuff. So when the South Node is there, it's like, wait, we don't want all this. So what could happen for Leos? Well, you could realize, I don't want all this stuff. But more likely, it could be, I mean, yes, you could be letting go of certain physical things that you no longer want or need. That could be a thing. Your possessions, you could just want to be more of minimalistic, go live with less, have less clutter. Okay, that would be a positive manifestation of it. But the negative manifestation is that The second house rules money, and the South Node says, let's release that too. Let's let it go. So, what could happen at some point in the next year and a half is Leos could make less money. Now, the thing is, I just did this transit and I have had times where I made more money. So, I'm not going to say that you can't make any money during the next year and a half. So, don't think that that's what it means. But there might be one point in the whole time that you're like, man, this job isn't worth it. or you realize what aspects of making money gotta go. Cause like it's not working. It's taking too much energy. You might not have as much energy to focus on money. Um, you might yeah, you might just not there just might be some changes. Now because the North Node is in the eighth house, some of the changes could be relying on other people more financially. And a lot of people have hangups about this because it's like they'll have great planets in the eighth house and they're like, yeah, other people help me a lot. And it's like in our society, we don't really see that as like that's that person's unique gift is to be able to get money from other people. Like that's actually a strength in a chart that we can see. But I digress. North Node in the eighth means you might take out a loan. You might want to pay off debt. You might be focused on investing, and maybe that South Node in the second is you letting go of the money you have and putting it into another account, putting it into a savings account or retirement account or anything like that, where it's going to gain money that wouldn't, gain interest, anything that gains interest. There could be focus on borrowing money at some point during this transit. There could be focus on, what else? Let me think. North Node in the eighth, also intimacy, right? So financially there's probably going to be something financial going on. A desire to pay off debt, a desire to invest, a desire to take out a loan on a house or something. And it's like maybe the South Node in the second is you having less money because you made that decision. And it's not necessarily, oh, I'm just poor now. Although it totally depends on the person. And again, maybe that South Node in the second is you studying minimalism and being like, does this bring me joy? And going through all your things and like releasing them and having that be a really spiritual thing. Maybe some of you are moving overseas and you need to get rid of your stuff. Like maybe there's a good reason for you to be releasing your things. Maybe you're selling them and just putting the money in your savings account. So lots of different ways that could manifest for all the different Leos out there. And then other things with the North Node in the eighth that are not financial could be psychic abilities, could be spiritual. Like to me, the eighth house is like the other side of the veil and the psychic ability to kind of connect with that. And it's also intimacy of all kinds, not just with your significant other, but with every person you know. Trust, connection, like sharing with people. Okay, sharing with people and trusting and being open with people and being intimate and being sharing your life with others, sharing your joys and your sorrows and letting people in. So for Leos who maybe are feeling that need, or even if you're not feeling that need, that could be something we're seeing around this time, is that at some point during the next year and a half, Leos become aware of how much that need matters. Being aware of how much you really want to share with other people. And maybe there's a new person that you want to share with, or a new person you're getting to know friend wise or relationship wise or something else that becomes more significant during this time. Creating new trust with people is a possibility. It's not guaranteed, but it's a possibility of how this could show up. Now, if you work in an eighth house field, such as finance, anything related to finance or other people's money, or anything related to the death industry, the sex industry, what else is eighth house? Accounting. If you're an accountant, you probably just are going to work more, right? Because that's more of the eighth house things. So for those who are not accountants, that probably won't apply to you. But for those who that's your field already, it could just be more focus on that. So we're going to go on now to our next sign, which is going to be our Virgos. And Leo, let me know if that resonated and made sense. Virgos, if you are a Virgo sun, moon, and rising, then that means the south node is going into the first house and the north node into the seventh house, which means you just got through the south node in the second. So maybe less money during this time. It doesn't guarantee now your money is going to just automatically be better, but it does. Sometimes the south node does have sort of a draining effect on your finances when it's in the second house. So if you feel that, and you'll know by now watching this video, if you're on it live or afterwards, you'll know if in 2024 and the end of 2023 your finances felt drained or not. Either they did or they didn't. And if they did, then again, this isn't to guarantee they're going to skyrocket, but it takes the drain and the plug is in the drain now. So south node entering the first and north node entering the seventh. Well, the first obvious thing you might think is, well, you're going to get into a relationship, right? Because doing more of the north node thing would be more focused on relationships, and less of the south node thing is like less focus on self. But I don't think that the south node going through the first means you stop thinking about yourself. I think it means you embrace qualities of the south node, and the south node draining effect can be on you. Now, how could this show up in a more positive way? Well, maybe you become more like the south node and the south node wants to release. Okay. Maybe you do some cleansing. Maybe you do some fasting. Maybe you do some emotional work where you're releasing things you don't want anymore. Maybe you release things that are just like you're ready to let them go. So this would be, I would say, a really, really good time if you're someone who's like, I want my life to change. I'm not happy with the way things are. I think the South Node might really assist in that because you can let go, you can lose weight during this transit if you want to. You can release aspects of your physical body that you want to. I'm not saying like lose a limb. I'm saying like lose weight, change a hairstyle, let go of a hairstyle, get a new one, let go of a certain look, get a new one, etc. So it is good for that. There might be ways that during this transit, there might be a direction, because I think of the first house also as like our life direction, and transits that hit the first house affect what we're doing. Like, are we building a house right now? Are we building a business? Are we having a baby? Are we breaking up and recovering from that? Are we, getting through something really challenging? Are we having wins? What are we doing? I see that as in the first house when it's transits. So when the South Node goes through the first house, maybe there is something about something you are going to do that you're like, I don't want to do that anymore. Maybe, but that could be a good thing. Maybe some Virgos are having kids and you want to have your significant other be a strong relationship because you don't have to do everything yourself anymore. And now you get to do it with someone. Maybe some Virgos are like, you had a business by yourself and now you're going to go into a partnership. This is not business advice. Maybe other Virgos were in a lonelier time and now they are connecting with others and making new friends, working in partnership with people in ways they were not before, and just embracing the other people in your life. So that seventh house can be that in the next 18 months, relationships take a more, like they take a higher priority in life, or, your own things you wanted to do kind of take a back seat and relationships are in the front seat. And that isn't necessarily bad, right? It doesn't have to mean that you're going to sacrifice so much for someone else, but like maybe you have connections with people, or you meet people, or you have situations that make it so worth it to be connected to others that you're like, yeah, I can stop doing this, or I can change this thing, or I can release this alone time I used to have. Now I don't have anymore. Okay, so let me think about what else could be happening, because really these seventh and first house are so cut and dry with like, this is the self, this is others, right? So with the North Node in the seventh, you might be like, you might initiate more or really want to put more energy into relationships. Again, close friends, significant others. If you're single, dating. If you're in a relationship, focusing on feeding and caring for the relationship and being the person you want to be in the relationship. And again, that South Node in the first doesn't have to be like letting go of the self. Although there could be some of that. There could be some of like, oh, I used to wake up at this time, but now I wake up at this time because it works better for the other people. But it could also be like South Node in the first, like getting really spiritual, meditating more, fasting more, um, doing things just in your own personal life that make you feel closer to the divine, that make you feel like the most spiritual version of yourself. So even though the first house doesn't really rule like habits and stuff, I really could see a lot of habit change happening with the South Node in the first, in the sense of like you wanting to embody spiritual principles in your life and let go of things that are more, let go of aspects of yourself that are more like wanting to conquer the world and embodying aspects in the self of wanting to conquer what's within. So that's kind of what I see for Virgos coming up. Let's go on to our next sign, which is going to be our Libras. Let me know, Virgos, how that landed for you. And Libras are up. Okay, so for Libra, Sun, Moon, and Rising, we have the North Node entering the 6th house and the South Node entering the 12th house. So what I'm going to predict for this might be a time where there's more focus on what you're doing. You could just be busier, a little bit busier. Why? Because the South Node in the 12th is maybe less time in private than normal, less alone time than normal. And the North Node in the 6th is like, what are we doing? We're sharpening the axe. We're sharpening our skills. We're cutting our teeth in some new skill or some skill we've been doing for a while. We're getting better at. We're doing chores. We're washing our car. We're paying our bills. We're going out to eat. We're filling our time with worldly things. Right? Because the North Node in the 6th is like that hungry head of the dragon that says, I want more of this. I want more of this 6th house right now. And the 6th house is like doing shit, it's not always accomplishing things. It can be, you can still accomplish during this time, but the 6th house is like when you want to organize your whole garage and closet, right? Because it's like you do it, no one pays you for that. And you don't really you do get a reward, but it's like, everything's just okay when you're done. Nothing's better than it. It might be better, but it's like those kind of things where like there could be some health stuff you need to address. This is not health advice, but for Libras, it's possible you're like focusing on what habits you need to have or supplements you need to take in order to just be okay. Or other health sort of solutions. But that could also be true for how you spend your time at work. It could be true for what you're doing at work, is like you're solving problems at work that don't make things better, but they just get you back to regular. Like, I don't want to predict that Libras are only going to be regular for the next year and a half, but the North Node in the 6th does put your focus on efficiency, habit change, problem solving. And the South Node in the 12th, now that could be, again, spending less time in private. But I will say that the South Node pretty much matches the energy of the 12th house quite well, because the 12th house is like the unseen parts of our subconscious, and the South Node wants to be very spiritual. So what does this mean? Well, for some Libras, this could be another therapy type thing, right? When the South Node transits that 12th house, where you're ready to let go of any form of self-sabotage you notice, when you're ready to let go of maybe things you've been holding on to from the past, even grief from the past, when you're ready to let go of certain emotional patterns, and these energies match, so it's a good time for that kind of work. I'm not diagnosing that or anything, I don't diagnose anything. But some Libras might just want to do more spiritual practices that help you let go of old hurts. Some Libras might want to meditate more or spend your private time more spiritually. And it feels like, okay, this doesn't feel like what a lot of us do. I know I do sometimes spiritually. Sorry, I'm going to cough. Hold on. Okay, so some Libras, it's not filling your head with spiritual knowledge with the South Node and the 12th. It's doing meditations that bring you an experience of emptiness. Okay, it's like the Buddhist concept of emptiness where you're not filling your mind with a bunch of stuff, emptying out that emotional stuff. And some of that might be practices you know how to do. You might be learning that stuff, but it's not learning the knowledge. It's creating the feeling of emptiness in a positive way, in a spiritual way, right? Empty so that I'm not carrying around attachments to the world that are not serving me, right? That kind of emptiness. So I really get the vibe with South Node in the 12th, North Node in the 6th of chop wood, carry water. You know how monks do chores? Why? Because it kind of tames the monkey mind. So it's kind of like that energy. Now, I know if someone told me in the next year and a half you're going to be doing chores to tame your mind, I'm not going to be excited about that. So it doesn't take over the energy of the whole year. We have other planets. This is just a reading on the nodes. But while life is doing life and while you're accomplishing whatever you're accomplishing, you may also be learning how to chop wood, carry water. You might be finding that when you do the dishes, you get intuitive insights. So you do the dishes more, right? It's that kind of thing, but it's going to be unique to each one of you. Okay, so more focus on tending to your problems and dealing with them, and maybe even this might be going as far as like, I want to say it's Kaizen, but I could be wrong, where it's all about like putting all your focus on the moment. If you are making tea, you are just making the tea and just like as a spiritual practice. So things like that might also be involved. Let's go on now to our next sign, which is going to be Scorpio. And let me know, Libras, how that landed. Okay, here we go. Cody, you need some emptiness. Yeah. Okay, going on now to Scorpio. So for Scorpio, we have the North Node in the 5th and the South Node in the 11th. So the North Node in the 5th suggests that you may take on more creative projects. You may be focusing on creating whatever you're creating, birthing what you want to birth into being, creating what you want to create, putting your own stamp on things. So this can be actual creative stuff like writing songs or painting or doing other, writing or anything creative like that. But it could also be things you create like at your job and things that you make happen in the world. The 5th house is like things that emanate from you that are like creative, have creative potency, but that creation can be used in a field that is not creative. North Node in the 5th, some of you Scorpios might want to have kids in the next 18 months. I'm not saying you have to, I'm not predicting it. If you're a Scorpio who has kids, you might be really focusing on them, growing them and raising them right, and investing a lot of energy into your kids, regardless of their age, if you have them. If you don't have the kids, that's not for you. North Node in the 5th for Scorpios can also be a focus on the dating life and fun and pleasure, gambling, having fun, enjoying yourself. This can be a really fun transit because the North Node is very materialistic and the 5th house is pleasure. So it's like doing things that bring you pleasure in the physical world, going to the places you want to go, seeing the sights you want to see, being with the people you want to be with, having the fun you want to have. So I do like it for that. Now let's talk about for a moment what this South Node in the 11th could be bringing. This can be letting go of something in groups. Now, that's one way it can show up, that at some point during the next year and a half, letting go of a friend group or moving away from a friend group or something like that. Or let's say you've had a commitment, a social commitment of some kind, like you're the chair of a board or you do something in your community. You might step back from that or step down or take a break from that at this point. If you're in some kind of support group, you might find that this is a time to not go to that support anymore. I'm not recommending that for anybody. Every case is different. But there's some other things we could see with the South Node in the 11th that doesn't just mean ditching your friends or not having friends anymore. It could be, again, taking a step away from a certain community that you realize for whatever reason, for any reason. So that could be it. But it could also be bringing the South Node qualities into your connections with people. It could be meditating in a group. It could be going to spiritual events. And those are now the people that you want to be around, people who are Buddhist or who do want emptiness, or, going to group meditations or going to any group related thing that's like a spiritual process or spiritually related, or is filled with people who are like the South Node, which is people who don't have a lot of things, people who are minimalists, people who don't care as much about worldly possessions, but they care about things that are rich in spirit. So that could show up in your friend life where you just meet you can meet a lot of homeless people, Scorpio, or you can meet a lot of people who, for whatever reason, just don't, like, you can meet a bunch of monks or you meet a bunch of other people in life who, again, their values are not materialistic. It's something else. Yeah. So that could be more of a positive. You could actually join a spiritual group, even though the South Node tends to mean release. You could join a spiritual group because it's like bringing the topic of release and emptiness and spiritual virtues into your friends. So maybe some Scorpios, your friend group could be becoming minimalists, right? Or your friend group could be becoming Buddhist or something. Buddhist isn't the only one, but it's the one that comes to my mind first for like the emptiness and the like releasing attachments and stuff. So it could be any kind of belief system that has those values. Okay, I think that is what I have for Scorpio. And I do think that North Node of the 5th can be really positive too, right? With embracing fun and joy. So like who doesn't want that? So we're going to go on now to our Sagittariuses. And that is going to be North Node in the 4th, South Node in the 10th. Okay, so of the places where the nodes are compatible, this is not so much. It's not so much on the compatible side. Why? Because the South Node is about letting go of attachments and letting go of worldly things, and the North Node is about what makes you feel good and like honoring the South Node is about that, and the 10th house is very worldly, and then the North Node is all about worldly materialistic things and wanting more of them. And the 4th house is not very materialistic. It's like maybe you're home. So some Sagittarius maybe you move, you buy a home, or you're focusing on making your home more of what you want it to be like what you want. So that could be a positive thing, especially for Sagittarius who this cycle of life, this time of life would make sense for them to want to buy a house or move to a bigger place or save up to put a deposit on the place they want to live or something like that. So it could be that. But for other Sagittariuses, you're fixing up the home you already have and just putting energy into it and putting focus on the material side of the house, like the deck and the hot tub and the pool, or, whatever you have at your house. And then the South Node in the 10th for Sagittarius, that one, I guess I'm trying to think of a good way this could be. You could work with a bunch of very spiritual type people who just don't have a lot of ambition. You could get sick of fame, success, right? Because that's the thing about South Node and the 10th. David Bowie had South Node conjunct his Midheaven, and the 10th is not exactly the same as the Midheaven, but it's close enough for this example. And he had a song about fame and how much he didn't like it. So some of you are not famous, so fine, but like, if you're getting more recognition for something, you might step down from something where you get a lot of recognition sometime in the next 18 months. You might be more aware of an energy of your life where recognition is coming, or fame is coming, or success is here, or it's coming, or it's on its way, or you're getting a taste of being recognized and you don't like it. It could be that you are faced with the aspects of success that you don't like, and it doesn't mean you have to stop doing them or they'll be taken away, but that there might be a desire sometime for Sagittarius is starting January 2025 in the next 18 months where you're like, yeah, this thing that I was seeking recognition for, I hate this, I don't want it anymore. Or this thing that or let's say that's not the case. For some Sagittarius, it might be that. It might be stepping down from a position of power, stepping down from a job that was taking a lot from you to enjoy your personal life. It might be working less to be able to focus on your own emotional well-being or home and family. Or it might be selling and buying houses or something for some Sagittarius who are in real estate. And then the South Node in the 10, let's say you're not releasing ambitions at all. It could be that you become known for being a spiritual person. You become the qualities of the South Node get infused into your reputation. What are the qualities of the South Node? Like a monk, wants to release everything, wants no attachment. So like you become known as the spiritual, whatever you are, the spiritual one. And that could be how that South Node in the 10th is showing up for Sagittarius, is that like you're seen in that way of like someone who doesn't care about things, or someone who's more like has spiritual qualities, and you're just recognized for that within yourself. That feels like it's not so bad, especially for those Sagittariuses who are very ambitious right now. And you're like, I'm ambitious. What are you talking about? It might be that your priorities shift slightly and you're like, well, if I'm this ambitious and I hate my life, well, maybe I do need to do a little bit less, right? It could be at some point in the next year and a half that there is a change in the priorities, but again, it might not be like that. It might be more like you are in a position where you're seeing success, or you're with successful people, or you're doing the corporate thing, or you're doing the career thing right now, and you're just feeling that feeling like, God, I wish I could run away from all of this crap. This corporate, nonsense that takes forever to get anything done, and you have to kiss everyone's ass. You might just get tired of ass kissing during this transit, Sagittarius. You might not change it. You might still have the same job through the whole 18 months, but you are detesting certain aspects of success for the sake of success, or recognition for the sake of recognition. When people are famous for no reason, when they get all this, attention kind of that they don't really deserve, when they use it for bad things, that kind of stuff. So it could just be you're more confronted with these kind of energies, and you're seeing that, and you're just in a time where that feeling is activated. But some of you are like, yeah, no, I want to work less and be home more. And it might just be that simple. It may not be that you're making less money. It could just be that you are motivated or aware of how much you want to work less and be home more. Working from home is a possibility too, although I wouldn't predict that for everyone. Okay, let's go on now to Capricorns. Okay. So Capricorn, whoops. Nope, wrong way. Capricorns. Also, for anyone who was not on earlier in the video, you can get my Blocks to Blessings video. It is out now. It is something that it's like a 10-minute video that I do where I tell you the biggest or most striking block in your chart and how you can work with it. This is special because these aren't available all the time. And if you're watching this later and you're bummed you missed out, get on my email list. You'll be the first to know everything I do, including reading sales, including videos, whatever I'm doing, whatever I'm up to. Okay, going on now to Capricorns, we have the North Node entering your third house and the South Node entering your ninth house. So the good thing about this transit is that it matches. The energy of the North and South Node match. The North Node kind of matches the third house. The South Node kind of matches the ninth house. So what might happen during this time? Well, North Node in the third, you might do more of something related to the third house. What is that? Have more of a commute, drive more, see your siblings more or your cousins or aunts and uncles. You might, what else? North Node in the third. I'm totally drawing a blank. The third house is like your local environment. So if you've been overseas, maybe you come back to your local environment. It's also like your commute that you do every day. So I said drive more, but like more focus on the groceries. You know what I mean? like going to the store and grabbing something or going over here, stopping by this place. For some reason, more focus on that. South Node in the ninth. Now, North Node in the third. Now, some of the things are going to depend on each person, but like, let's say you're a Capricorn who writes. You might write more during this time, especially things that are repetitive, things that are designed for beginners, things that are simple, or taking complex concepts and making them simpler. If you're a writer, you might be doing a lot of writing at this time and maybe not doing as much publishing. If you are not a writer, if you're an elementary school teacher, you could be doing that more. If you're not someone who ever deals with anything related to elementary school, there could be some things in the next year and a half related to elementary school you have to deal with. Why? Because the third house rules elementary education. Not everyone is going to have that, but for some people it's possible. So let's say there's a Capricorn mom out there who's like gets really involved in their PTA at this time, right? Something like that could be possible. Now you can do that at other times too, but the North Node is the thing you're going to like step into more. So maybe your kid has little league and you're driving them to soccer all the time, or there's something else like that where you are showing up. There's a focus on getting from here to there, and that's more of a more important, significant part of your life at this time. If you're a Capricorn who has like an office job, maybe you're writing and responding to emails more, answering the phones more during this year and a half, or doing things that are like little busy tasks like that, or doing things with your hands. Okay, South Node in the ninth. What are Capricorns going to release starting in January 2025? Well, you might be doing less long-term study. So maybe some Capricorns quit school during this time or finish school if you've been studying. If you haven't been studying, it's probably not going to be that. Some Capricorns might be letting go of certain belief systems that you have that you realize aren't serving you anymore. You might walk away from a certain group that has a set of beliefs. And that could be a strong or a really subtle energy where you're like, man, I used to think that, but I don't believe that anymore. Releasing beliefs can be pretty big during this time. So especially if you consider from January 2025 through all of 2025 and the first basically half of 2026, like you could look back at the end and be like, wow, I don't believe any of that stuff anymore. Like it really might be a time of purging belief systems and releasing them. You can also study during this time. Even though it's the South Node in the ninth, it still brings, now some will not want to study and it will have that releasing factor, but others may want to study spiritual things that are like Buddhism and Stoicism and maybe Zen, and like anything that teaches you like how to not be attached to this world, how to, yeah, release attachments. You might be studying what happens when you die. You might just be more drawn to spiritual disciplines that are similar to that south node, which is like letting things go. It's like calming the mind, emptying the mind. And, I've talked about this in a lot of these signs, but the ninth house is like your belief systems, right? It is what you believe, it's what you're studying, it's philosophy. So the south node might be philosophies that are about what is not there rather than what is there. And that, I'll just let you connect the dots on that to what makes sense in your life. Again, if you had mentors or teachers, maybe you stopped being mentored by them, and maybe it runs its natural course and this is just timing. Or maybe there's a bigger, greater reason for that you're like, no, I can't study under this person anymore. It's bad. Or you realize, again, realizing something about a group you're involved in, even though ninth house isn't groups, it's beliefs. So oftentimes our beliefs are related to the groups we're in. So it can be like a ninth house can be a church. That's still a group, but it's a group of people who believe one thing. So quitting a church, quitting a spiritual belief, quitting a spiritual philosophy, realizing the law of attraction is the total BS or something like that might be happening at some point here of going, okay, I don't need this belief anymore. Yeah, that could be happening. And again, it could also be more spiritual though, right? Because the south node is all about letting go of things. The ninth house is beliefs. So like more spiritual practices, more forms of, you know, spiritual anything might be significant. Even though it's the letting go of it, it still matches that energy of spirituality. So that is what I see for Capricorns. We're going to move on now to the sign of Aquarius. And for Aquarius, we have the south node in the 8th and the north node in the 2nd. The north node really does match the 2nd house. So starting January 11th, 2025, you might be focusing on making more money or accumulating more possessions. This might be involved in like doing something. You might intentionally create the chance to make more money. You might be trying to do this. This might be something you're working on. You might not intentionally be doing that and just need to make more money. You might want to take care of your stuff. You might release debts or finish paying off a debt during the next year and a half, and then now you have more money. That like you have more money that stays in your account because you're not paying something off anymore, and that could happen anytime in the next year and a half. South node in the 8th could also be releasing ways that you have been reliant on other people for finances. Like you go, okay, I have been using this much from this person and I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to become more self-reliant, self-sufficient. Maybe some Aquariuses who are maybe tangled up in situationships like that involve other people's money realize the need to become independent. Right? You might be realizing in some way in your life that if I have the money, then I call the shots. So let me untangle myself from X, Y, and Z. It doesn't have to be that, though. It could simply be that your debt is paid off and now you're freed up to do more. It could be that if you had owed someone something, you're paid off on that. It could be that if someone is currently or was relying on you financially, maybe you cut them off. Maybe you're like, yeah, no, we're not going to do this anymore. I don't want to support you anymore. Maybe there was a relationship that you were supporting the other person and now that ends or something, and now you don't have to. There could be a lot of reasons for that aren't just simply a breakup, right? So just apply that to what makes sense in your situation. The south node in the 8th can also, the 8th house is also like psychic abilities, the other side of the veil, and psychology. So the south node in the 8th kind of does match the vibe of the 8th house as it's being releasing in an area that involves non-physical things. So what does that mean? Well, maybe some Aquariuses during this time might find that, oh, I get really good psychic insights if I have not eaten for 4 hours, or I get really good psychic insights if I do nothing all day, or something else. I'm not saying like that's all you'll be doing during this time, but there might be some kind of connecting to how to create the emptiness to receive good, high quality psychic messages or psychic insight or intuitive downloads. That could be a thing. Now, the South Node in the eighth can also have to do with intimacy and relationships. And again, so the North Node, or sorry, the second and the eighth house, when it comes to like evolutionary astrology, they're going to be more like the second house is like I'm focusing in on myself, and the eighth house is like I'm focusing out on sharing with other people and letting my energy mix with others. So when the North Node is in the second and the South Node is in the eighth, you might be like, I'm focusing in on me right now. I'm focusing in on what I'm doing and what I've got planned and what I'm creating and what I want to make money at. And I'm letting go and I'm releasing things that are me sharing with others. Or so some of you might be kind of putting up some boundaries with people during this 18 months, or shifting your focus from me just going along with what you want to do and like letting it all work versus me doing what I want and like kind of calling the shots in my own life. So even though it's second and eighth house and people always say it's only about money, the second house really does have to do with like you focusing in on what you've got and what you're doing. And then that eighth house is like you focusing, like you sharing with others, merging, getting intimate with people. So it's possible there's a letting go of intimacy where it's like, that could be so many things though. Like it doesn't have to be your relationship ends. It could be you have a baby and now there's less time to connect with each other like that, or something else that would change the intimacy in your life for that reason. But it could also be really letting go of really close connections that you feel like are draining you, especially if they're draining your bank account. Okay, Aquarius, that's what I have for the nodes in the second and the eighth. Let's go on now to our last but not least sign, Pisces, where we have the North Node entering the first house and the South Node entering the seventh house. So when the North Node enters the first house, it really does say we're focusing on our own self, our own body, our own habits, our own what we're creating in our life. And the South Node of the seventh doesn't really mean we're letting go of all relationships, but it does have a feeling of releasing the aspects of relationships that are not serving us. And like it does feel like releasing in relationships. So I'm trying to think of what more I can say here. If you are a Pisces who has been making a lot of sacrifices for others and that kind of stuff, this might be a time where you feel like you want to do more of the things you want to do for you. But at the same time, the South Node can sometimes drain us. We can feel drained in that area of life a bit. So could relationships become a drain for Pisces? Maybe. Could they become something that does not feel as life-giving, something that is like maybe it's a season of life where you are giving more in a relationship and not getting as much? I'm trying to put a positive spin on this. Maybe some Pisces will have their relationships be more spiritual in nature. That might be a positive thing where like your close friends become more spiritual. You meet close friends through spiritual practices or spiritual groups that are especially ones that are focused on like non-attachment or emptiness or releasing. Maybe you meet someone at a Buddhist retreat. Maybe you meet friends or lovers or potential partners at, I don't know, something else that's like really just spiritual, any kind of spiritual event. Or Okay, if it's not spiritual, you know how sometimes like I'll see like a bank that like you can come shred all your papers. Maybe something like that where like you actually do something like that and you meet people at an event that's about letting go of stuff. It's about releasing a thing. Let's go back to the south node in the first or north node in the first because I'm trying to come up with other things that you could see going on during this time. Well, focusing more on your body and maybe building muscle, right? Because the north node is about like increase. So this wouldn't be like as much about losing weight. It might be about gaining, right? Gaining things that help your physical body, gaining things that help you in your reputation and your identity. So focusing on who you are and who you want to be and growing in your life in the sense of like you can become more materialistic during this time because you can embody some of the qualities of that north node that says I'm hungry for more. Is that physical hunger? Possibly. But I'm not really trying to predict that. Oops, I still have it on Aquarius. I'm not really trying to predict that Pisces are going to be hungry for 18 months. But maybe you are hungry for something metaphorically. Maybe you're hungry for a raise. Maybe you're hungry for growth. Maybe you're hungry to learn a new skill, to learn a spiritual thing you've always wanted to learn. Maybe you're hungry to get better at organizing your closet and keeping it organized and getting all the clothes you want. So we could see an increase in desire to focus on things that are connected to your body, like the clothes you put on it, the makeup you put on it if you wear makeup, the hair you do, the physical presentation of your own physical self. But it can also be your identity, right? Because the first house is like, who are you? Who are you, Pisces? And the north node there says, I'm someone who's really ambitious right now. Maybe that's not your character, but like maybe there's a reason to be really ambitious right now. I am someone who gets shit done right now during this 18 months. I am someone who accomplishes things in the next 18 months. So maybe Pisces will kind of have a fire under their ass a bit during this 18 months to like become a certain version of yourself that you would like to be. And I would say that would be the way to work with this energy. That there could be there are negative qualities associated with both the north and south node. The north node ones are excess and the south node ones are deficiency. So I would say watch out for the excess in that first house of like becoming too materialistic for a year and a half, where you're sacrificing all relationships just to have a couple more bucks, you know, that would be like the worst case scenario. But I think that working with that north node in the first house is like, you could really work with this, I think, by deciding what life do I want and what do I need to do more of so that I can have the identity of being the person I want to be and sort of like embody that version of the self. I just feel like there's probably a little bit more on the north node going through the first that I'm not like totally connecting with, but I feel like it's like you want to be yourself. You want to be yourself. With the north node in the first, you want to be yourself. You want to make impressions on people. You want to make the right impression. You want to influence people to get what you want out of life. And you want to be yourself. And it's not just like, I want to wear the clothes I want to wear. It's like, you might want to show up stronger. And I just think of like how like famous people are like more of what they already are. They're like, whatever they are, they're strong at it. Like, you know, a famous person isn't just like a little bit pretty or a little bit funny or a little bit sweet. They're the sweetest. They're the funniest. They're the most best singer. Like, and I'm not saying everything about fame is good. So just stay with me here. The north node in the first house to me represents an 18-month window where you have the chance to be more of what you already are. So pick what qualities you want to cultivate. be intentional about it so you don't, you don't feed the ones that are not working for you. Choose which qualities in yourself. This is how I'm recommending to work with this transit. And if your North Node is right now in your first house and you're watching this, try this until January. So how do you do that? Well, you just pick the things you want to be better at. Do you want to be the funniest? Do you want to be the prettiest? Do you want to be the happiest? Do you want to be the most, fastest at doing a certain thing? The North Node will make you kind of focus more on what skills you're developing and who you're becoming anyway. So might as well make the best out of it and pick and choose who you want to become and work with that and like consciously direct that energy to enforce positive things, enforce the positive qualities that you want to really lean into of the self, or develop new ones. Even though the first house isn't about learning new things, the North Node going through the first house is going to bring growth in your life. So pick your laser beam, point your laser beam to the things you want to grow in your life, and especially related to the self and the body. So how do you want your body to be in 18 months? How do you want yourself to be in 18 months? And then, kind of focus that energy. That's what I would do with this one, which we should all be doing anyway. But like wherever the North Node is, you're naturally going to want to focus on. So that's how I think you could use this transit for Pisces. Okay, guys. Well, that's our video. We covered today the transits of the North Node through all of the different signs of the zodiac based on whatever your sun, moon, and rising are. You can go back and watch for your sun, moon, and rising. And you can even watch the one before your sign. So if you are let me give an example of this. Yeah, if you're a Pisces, you could watch Aquarius for what happened in the last 18-month cycle. Because that's going to kind of give you insight on what you're dealing with now and what the energy is about to shift from. Okay, so I'm going to check the comments here. Check out my Blocks to Blessings video in the link in the description if you have not already done so. So Mother Moon, hello. Cinza made it just in time. Okay, Cinza's saying, releasing the frantic, perfectionist, obsessive Virgo mind. I'm just going to chill. Thank you. You're welcome. Content Comion. I probably said that weird. Hello. And I know that Cody said some things earlier. Karmic Karen said some things. Kat, hello. 8th House Pisces. Rohit. And ASD, I remember saying hey earlier. So we're all caught up. And I do hope to get yearlies out. So if you are new to the channel and you want to see the video for your sign for the year, then feel free to make sure you subscribe and hit the bell. It does really help, because then you guys see the video when it comes out. And so it's nice for you and it's nice for me, because then some of you watch it more. So it's good. It's good for everyone. If you like the content, it's good for everyone if you subscribe. And I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your weekend. And I will see you beautiful souls in the next video. Bye, guys.